Welcome to Hockey Talk. My name is Jaret Schneider, along with Jorden Peca. Jordan, you know what? It's been another good week in the NHL.
It has.
It's been a surprising start to the year, I think, actually, from my standpoint. I've got a chance to, watch a lot of games this year, and a lot of surprising teams, a lot of teams that have kind of came out of nowhere, won some games, and some teams that have kind of fell off already. Some teams are already making trades to get rid of their whole team and start fresh, already mailing it in, so to speak.
It's been pretty busy for less than a month into the season, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess we'll start with some of the hot teams right away. We've got the Avs and the Leafs, so we might as well just start with the Leafs. I mean, they won another game last night against the Calgary Flames.
Absolutely, and I find it really interesting. I mean, for a few years now, the Leafs have kind of been middle of the pack, and they've been there, but they've never really done anything to impress. And then they went out the offseason, they got a couple trades, they brought in guys like Clarkson and Mason Raymond, and people thought, well, maybe they have a chance to make the playoffs, do a little bit better this year. And I think it's fair to say they've done a lot better than people expected. You know, they've won a lot of games, and it's interesting because most of the games they win, they actually get outshot. But if you watch the games, other teams get 30, 40 shots against them, but they're not good scoring chances. They're shots from the blue line, they're shots from bad angles, and the Leafs are doing a really good job of keeping everybody out of the slot and away from the goaltender, and then they take the puck and counterattack the other way and score a goal. So it's something they haven't really done a lot in the past few years, but they've really become a very aggressive team this year, and it's really paid off.
Yeah, I agree with you. I know that the trades have done wonders for the team already. I mean, they were a good team last year. They were in the 5 seed, almost won the division. They were battling for the division. Ended up making the playoffs last year, losing out in the first round to the Bruins, who eventually, as we know, went to the Cup final. And the trades they made were good. You know, Clarkson, solid pickup. You know, Mason Raymond, obviously he's all right. But Jonathan Bernier is one who's been very good for them. Not only playing well in the net, but making Reimer play just as hard to just get his own starts. Last year, Reimer was basically given the job. Wasn't playing that well, giving up 3-4 goals a night. But this year, having Bernier there, I think just subconsciously he knows that he's got to play well. You know, he's got to keep the puck out of the net if he wants to continue playing, because Bernier will play well, and he has. So in turn, it has worked out, and both goalies have played phenomenal this year, being a great start for them. And you mentioned them getting outshot, which I've actually seen with a few different teams, a few different winning teams this year. And you know what? The Leafs, they come out flying off the bat. You know, they score the opening goal. What happens is they don't play in a shell defensively, but, you know, the other teams start racing around, and then they start firing shots. Like, for example, I watched the Colorado Avalanche beat the Pittsburgh Penguins 1-0 and get outshot. It was like 37-14. But what happened was the Avalanche had scored their goal early on in the game and just held their own the rest of the game and did a great job defensively with their own goaltending and things like that, which is kind of going to lead us now into the Avalanche. But you know what, and that's kind of what I had seen throughout the year was, you know, some teams, you know, they get that early goal, that early 2 goals, couple like that. We haven't seen the huge battles and then the overtime games that we've used to seeing in the past. We're seeing a lot of teams win in regulation now. There hasn't been as many overtime games as there has been in the past. And you know what, I kind of like that more. I like that hockey more. And now I guess, you know, leading into the Avalanche, another one of the hot teams, 10-1 on the year. They lost early on a little bit while ago to the Red Wings, but now they've hopped back on it and they've won a few more games.
Yeah, it's really impressive. And again, very similar to the Leafs. They brought in some players, they got some good draft picks, and people thought they'd be okay. But again, nobody expected them to be just quite so hot. And I think a lot of it comes back to Patrick Waugh, the head coach. They brought him in. It's his first year in the NHL, and people always knew he was a bit of a hothead, but they knew he was a good coach. But I don't think they were sure exactly how he would adjust to the NHL and playing top caliber teams night after night. But so far, he looks comfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, Patrick Waugh has been a huge adjustment and a huge improvement for that Avalanche team. You know, he's came in and he's been a fresh voice and a new face. You mentioned they brought in some new players, like, for example, drafting Nathan McKinnon #1 overall doesn't hurt your team ever.
Of course not.
They made a trade and got Corey Sarich. They also signed Benoit on the point. They made a couple of good moves defensively to help their team out in that way. And it's helped them in their start so far to get to 10-1. You know, they lost their one game to Detroit, but they've looked good throughout the year. They've got a ton of shots early on in first periods. I know they're out shooting teams like 18-7 in first periods, which is absolutely phenomenal. And then it ends up being even because they start winning, right? So, I mean, the shots end up, you know, being towards the end of the game. But, you know, it's been a great start to the game and a couple of great starts to the year for the Avalanche, you know. And then, you know, let's move into the Jets, for example. You know, our local team here, the Winnipeg Jets. Bit of a different story for them. You know, they were kind of expected to be, you know, maybe a playoff team. Right now, not looking so well. I know they've lost a couple of recent games to, you know, St. Louis last night, I believe, and then the Avalanche on the weekend. So the Jets maybe going in a bit of a different direction.
A different direction, but not necessarily a bad direction. I mean, their record is it doesn't really reflect their style of play. Most of the games they lose are very close games. They're only losing 3-2 or 4-3, and they're a good team. They're fast and they're strong. Just right now, early on, they're just having trouble finishing. They can't get that final goal. They can't get that one save they need. And they're in every game, which I think is something they can definitely use moving forwards. But they just got to find a way to clinch that game.
Yeah, absolutely. They had a couple of great games recently. They played the Avalanche on Sunday, and they had the lead. It was 2-1 after 2. They held their own for about, I think, the final 7 minutes of the game. The Avalanche scored, tied it up, and then scored again with 3 minutes left to unfortunately win the game in regulation and not even get that point for the Jets to take it into overtime. And then last night we kind of saw the same thing with St. Louis. It was tied going down. There was a minute left. It looked like they were going to at least get a point against a divisional team, take it to OT. But St. Louis scored with 53 seconds left last night and just swept the rug right from underneath of them. And it's too bad in the way it's been, because they've got a 5-7-2 record now, which obviously isn't the record that's going to get you into the playoffs. They're going to need more wins, especially here moving forward. And that kind of brings me to my other point, is with Claude Noel. He's in his 3rd season as head coach. I've heard a lot of people say, don't fire him yet, let him go. But how much longer do you give him? I know this Jets team isn't a Stanley Cup favorite, but they are still a favorite to make the playoffs, especially with only 7 teams in the division, and it's a fairly weaker division other than the resurgence of the Colorado Avalanche, and then you got the Blackhawks and the Blues. But you see the Jets, I think there was some potential this year, and I think this was kind of a coming out year for some of those guys. So what do you do with Claude Noel?
Well, I'm pretty much on the same boat as you. It's definitely kind of the coming out year for the Jets, and Noel's in his 3rd season, you mentioned, and I think this year they have the team, maybe not necessarily to win the Stanley Cup, but they definitely have a team that can make the playoffs, and I think that's where you got to draw the line. If he can't make the playoffs with this team, if he can't turn it around and at least get them on a winning record, I think maybe you got to start thinking maybe now's the time at the end of the season that we start looking for a new head coach.
Yeah, absolutely. There's some coaches out there. For example, you've got Peter Laviolette, who I think is a phenomenal coach. He's won a cup with Carolina in 2007. He unfortunately didn't have the best years, or the years he wanted to have with the Flyers team that he had over the past few years. Got fired early on this year, but that's an option for the Jets. I like his coaching style, as a matter of fact, and I think that would really suit the Jets. I think he would be a very good pickup. Not saying I want to get rid of Claude Noel. I think Claude Noel is a great coach. He's hilarious in the media. He's funny to watch every night, but there is some other options out there. It's not like a time where you fire your coach and you think, where do we go? We have absolutely nobody, because there is coaches out there right now who I think would love to move into a job here with the Jets and a young team, and I think it would be a very strong team for the Jets.
I think so, absolutely. And if we can move maybe away from coaches into the player aspect of the game, maybe talk about some trades we've seen. I know the Avs have made a bit of a trade that you thought was a little bit interesting. Why don't you? It
kind of surprised me, actually. They made the trade this afternoon. I got the update on my phone when I was having lunch, and they traded Steve Downey to the Flyers for Max Talbot. So you see the two players, and I kind of looked at it and thought, well, is there draft picks or anything? No, it was a straight-up trade. Steve Downey's a younger guy. He's a feistier player. Played a lot like Max Talbot did when he won his cups. He's won a couple of cups now. And so they play a lot of a similar style. So you think, from the Avalanche perspective, are they bringing in Max Talbot as a leadership role and that kind of thing? But Steve Downey's played very well for them. And him moving to Philadelphia, I still don't know how I feel about the trade, obviously, but I think it could benefit both teams actually this year specifically.
Absolutely. I think bringing on Max Talbot is a good move for the Avalanche. I know they are a very, very young team, so sometimes you bring in that older veteran presence, kind of calm the guys down, and the guys have somebody they can learn from going forward. So I think that's a good move. And then Steve Downey going the other way. They're getting a fantastic player right now that they can use for years to come. So I think it balances out okay. I don't know if personally I would have made the trade, but again, like you said, I can definitely see it working well. And then there was another trade we got between the Islanders and Buffalo. What do you think about that?
Yeah, Matt Molson. The Islanders traded away Matt Molson to the Buffalo Sabres with a first-round pick in this year's draft and a second-round pick in next year's draft. So 2 picks, and Matt Molson for Vanek. And Vanek's a phenomenal player, but he's getting up there in age. So this is an absolute steal for the Buffalo Sabres at this point in the year.
Absolutely.
There was talk about them trading Vanek and Miller anyway. They got rid of Vanek, and they got a lot more than what I think they should have got from him and would have got from him from other teams. So I don't know. The Islanders, they kind of do this every once in a while. They make weird things. They sign DiPietro to 15-year contracts, and they do some weird things. So I don't know if it's going to help the Islanders. It might help them immediately this year because they're doing all right. I think they're sitting in close to a playoff spot or around a playoff spot right now. So maybe that's what they want. Maybe they think now's the time. Vanek could be a phenomenal player to play with Tavares, but Molson was that great player to play with Tavares, and they got rid of him. So I think it's a win for the Sabres.
Actually, I do too, which is a funny thing to say because lately the Sabres have not done very much worthy, to gain something this good. But this is definitely a good trade coming back their way. They get a young guy in Matt Molson, a guy that's guaranteed to score you goals. They got next year's Islanders draft pick, and I think the Islanders will probably finish middle of the pack, so you'll probably pick up a good player. And 2 years from now, you get the second-round pick, and who knows what that draft's going to look like. That's great. And then going the other way, Thomas Vanek, the Islanders get a guy that's going to score goals for them now. And if they're expecting to make the playoffs, it might be nice to have that sniper. But at the end of the season, both these guys are free agents, and I can almost guarantee that Thomas Vanek is going to ask for a lot more money than Matt Moulson was going to ask for.
And I think Moulson would have been a lot more likely to re-sign with the Islanders, where Vanek won't be signing with the Sabres at the end of this year. I can guarantee you that. So it's a win for the Sabres. They get a phenomenal player and 2 draft picks out of a player who probably was going to come back in a season that's already been written off. I mean, they're 2-11 or something so far. But maybe we'll jump into injuries real quick. You know, we had a couple, Pekka Rinne and Teemu Selanne.
Well, I mean, I think the Selanne one's unfortunate because he's definitely a leader in the dressing room, but I don't think him being away will hurt his team, the Ducks, as much as Pekka Rinne being gone. He's been a stellar player for the Predators for the last couple of years, and he's really all they have. And so him being injured, I think their team's going to really have a tough time staying in the division.
Yeah, you know, they've been a real defensive team throughout the past few years, which got them into the playoffs and things, and Rinne has been a huge staple back there for them. So I think, you know, it's kind of too bad for the Predators. They're in, you know, I don't know if they were going to make the playoffs this year. But without Rinne, you know, I think it's like 4 weeks or something.
Yeah,
it
really hurts their
chances
chance.
for next little while anyway. Maybe we'll hop into picks real quick.
All right.
Last week we did 8 games because we are a day later in the week. So not the best records for the two of us. Overall record, not bad for you, terrible for me.
I like to hear that.
In total, you were 3-5 last week,
Ouch.
bringing your total to 14-14, 500 record. I was 2-6 last week, so I'm at 11-17. So terrible. Terrible
Jeez,
for me. I got time to bounce back. We'll bounce back this week, I think. That's the week.
Go ahead.
We'll head into 7 games this week. So you're beating me by quite a lot this week. So far we'll hop into tonight. We've got Anaheim heading out east to take on the Boston Bruins.
Oh, that's a tough one. I think Boston, a very defensive team, very strong team. Anaheim's got great offense. I'll take Anaheim on the road.
Yeah, that's a solid pick. I mean, Anaheim's been a very good team. You know, they lost the opener. They've already jumped back up to 8-3. They're looking great. Boston plays great defensively. I like them at home in the Garden there. So I'm going to take Boston. You know,
all right.
I just like what the Bruins have been doing
So
lately.
you want to go to 11-18 is what you're saying.
We'll see. Anyway, tomorrow night we got Detroit, who's on their big Western road swing. I think I screwed this up because I've got them. Oh no, sorry, I've got Detroit and Calgary. That's right.
Detroit and Calgary. Well, it's funny saying Detroit on a Western road swing because they've been in the West for so long. Playing Calgary at home. Calgary's kind of gone up and down, but I will take Calgary. I think they have a chance to actually bounce back at home and start a good momentum swing.
Yeah, Calgary's looked all right. I mean, I still don't think they're going to make the playoffs. You know, they've been a good team, though. They've looked good with the young squad. I think Detroit's has looked too good this year. They beat Vancouver again last night. They've been playing phenomenal. Alfie's played all right. You know, they lost to the Senators last week. But I like Detroit in this one, so I'm going to disagree with you this one. I'm going to take Detroit on the road. You know, they're in that bit of a Western swing, so I think they think a lot about hockey on the road swing. You know, I like the veteran presence on the road and on the road trips. I think they're a good team there. Anyway, we'll hop into Saturday now. We got Toronto in Vancouver.
Ooh, nice Canadian matchup, East versus West. I really like Toronto, what they're doing. They've been a good team. We talked about it, and Vancouver's been really, really solid. I'm going to take Vancouver. They're playing really good hockey. Luongo's having a bounce-back season. The Sedin's bounce-back season. I think Vancouver's got it.
Yeah, you know, both teams have played great this year. I like what Toronto's been doing as well, you know, with some of the trades that they've made and things like that. They've picked up some good players. Clarkson's played well. Reimer's played extremely very well. And you know what? I like the Leafs. They won again last night, so I'm going to take the Leafs on this one. Out west, I like that Eastern Division there. I like that it's the Central Eastern Division, the Atlantic Division with Detroit and Toronto. They've been a very good division this year.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to take Toronto again in this one. I think I've picked 3 teams out of that division so far. But anyway, we got your team, the Ottawa Senators. They're at home to Dallas on Sunday.
Oh, Dallas. There's a team that's been a pretty big surprise. Tyler Seguin playing fantastically. And the Sens, very, very up and down, but they shuffled their lines today in practice. They got a whole new set of lines. I'll take the Sens.
Like Ottawa, hey?
I think they're going to bounce back. They had a tough loss to Chicago this week. I think they'll bounce back and play well.
You know what? I think I'm going to agree with you on this one. You know, I like Ottawa. They've played pretty well all right this year. You know, I don't think they've got the record that they've wanted. I think Dallas is kind of in the same boat, though. They're kind of in a rebuilding stage. They're trying to make some young guys happen over there. But I like Ottawa at home in this one. Then we'll move to Monday. We got the hometown Winnipeg Jets. They're at home to the Detroit Red Wings.
Young versus old kind of thing going on here, and I think again Winnipeg looking to build momentum. They've been close in every game. I think they'll take this one.
You
the
like
Jets
Winnipeg
it is.
At home. You know what? I think I'm going to agree with you on this one. I hate to pick against Detroit, but I like Winnipeg at home. You know, Winnipeg's been a kind of a a surprise team this year. You know, sometimes they win close games, sometimes they lose close games. More often they've lost. But I like Winnipeg at home here early next week. The next game we got the Islanders going to Washington.
I'm going to take Washington. I think the Capitals haven't really had the start they wanted, but I think Ovechkin's going to motivate that team. They're going to come out flying.
You know what? And Washington's played well. I mean, Washington's been a solid team this year. I'm going to take the Islanders in this one just because.
The new look Isle?
The new look Isles this year. They're a bit of a different squad. They're a different looking hockey team on the ice. So I like the Islanders in this one. Then last game of the week, we got Nashville, who's going to travel to Denver to take on the Colorado Avalanche.
The Peca Rene-less Nashville Predators. I don't want to say it's going to be a romp, but I will take Colorado.
Take Colorado. And you know what? I think there's a lot of people that would agree with you just based on the record this year. But I think this is going to end up being a closer game than most people think. You know, they played a good game earlier on this year, the Avs and the Predators did. The Avs were on top, obviously, with the record that they've had. But I like Colorado as well. But I think it's going to be a closer game than most people think, even though it's at home without Pekka Rinne. You see some of the stuff that's surrounded Colorado this year with Varlamov. I didn't think we touched on it very much, but you know, the stuff that he's into right now. I know he's been released out of jail anyway. It's kind of a mess at this point. It's early on.
Bit of a distraction.
Yeah, it's just, that's all it is a distraction right now at this point. I know he's going to fly with the team. I don't think he's going to play, but he's going to be with the team on the road anyway, so he'll be there. But he could be that distraction anyway. But I like Colorado. You know, I'm going to agree with you. Pretty much wraps up picks, though, for this week. Looking good. You know, your record looks all right, 500. I'm below 500.
Yours looks pretty awful.
I had a good record last year. This year, not so much. I'm starting out on the short end of the stick. But other than that,
that's it. That's all I got.
All right. You know what? We'll be back next week, and we'll try and do better.